Minnesota real estate mortgage questions. Question 1. If an override clause appears in Sawyer Anderson's listing agreement, what must the licensee provide within 72 hours after the listing expires for the clause to be effective? Option A. A protective list. Option B. A new deed. Option C. A county tax appeal. Option D. A mortgage payoff statement. The correct answer is option A. A protective list. An override clause is tied to a protective list supplied within the required time after expiration. A deed, tax appeal, or payoff statement does not preserve the broker's override rights. The protective list identifies prospects covered by the clause. Question 2. A broker closes an existing trust account without notice. Why is that a problem under Minnesota trust account rules for Avery in Winona involving a small retail building priced at $239,000? Option A. Trust accounts may never be changed under any circumstances. Option B. A broker or closing agent must give written notice to the commissioner before closing an existing trust account. Option C. Only buyers can close brokerage trust accounts. Option D. Trust accounts are optional for earnest money. The correct answer is option B. A broker or closing agent must give written notice to the commissioner before closing an existing trust account. Minnesota rules require notice of trust account status changes and written notice before closing an existing account. This does not mean accounts can never change, but they must be properly reported. Buyers do not control brokerage trust accounts, and trust accounts are not optional when trust funds must be held. Question 3. Wetlands are suspected on a vacant Beltrami County parcel. What should a licensee recommend before development assumptions are made? Option A. Assume all wetlands can be filled without approval. Option B. Use only the buyer's preferred building sketch. Option C. Obtain qualified advice about wetland restrictions and permitting. Option D. Ignore wetlands because they affect only personal property. The correct answer is option C. Obtain qualified advice about wetland restrictions and permitting. Wetland restrictions can limit development and require permits or expert review. Assuming fill is allowed or relying only on a sketch creates risk. Wetlands are real property and land use issues, not merely personal property concerns. Question 4. A broker compares a buyer's desired use with zoning rules, parcel size, and market demand. What appraisal principle is being considered for Finley in Mankato involving a lake cabin priced at $321,000? Option A. Tie-in arrangement. Option B. Novation. Option C. Steering. Option D. Highest and best use. The correct answer is option D. Highest and best use. Highest and best use evaluates legal permissibility, physical possibility, financial feasibility, and maximum productivity. Tie-in arrangements, novation, and steering involve antitrust, contract substitution, and fair housing concerns. The analysis is about the most supportable property use. Question 5. A lender must disclose the cost of consumer credit so borrowers can compare loan terms. Which federal law is most directly involved for Morgan in Moorhead involving a duplex priced at $357,500? Option A. Truth in Lending Act. Option B. Sherman Antitrust Act only. Option C. Clean Water Act only. Option D. Minnesota Torrens Act only. The correct answer is option A. Truth in Lending Act. Truth in lending requires disclosure of credit terms such as APR in many consumer loans. Antitrust, environmental, and Torrens land registration laws address different areas. The question focuses on loan cost disclosure. Question 6. A buyer deposits earnest money with a broker in the form of a negotiable note rather than cash. What extra care is needed for Reese in Stillwater involving a farm parcel priced at $401,000? Option A. The broker may throw it away because it is not cash. Option B. The non-depositable item must be handled through authorized escrow with written authority and proper records. Option C. It can be placed in the broker's personal safe without records. Option D. It automatically becomes commission income. The correct answer is option B. The non-depositable item must be handled through authorized escrow with written authority and proper records. Non-depositable items received as earnest money require careful escrow handling, written authority when the broker holds them, and proper records. They are not discarded, hidden as personal property, or treated as commission income. The rule protects all parties' interests in non-cash deposits. Question 7. A Woodbury listing agreement omits the real property description. What required element is missing? Option A. The buyer's credit score. Option B. The lender's underwriting model. Option C. A description of the real property involved. Option D. The appraiser's license number. The correct answer is option C. A description of the real property involved. Minnesota listing agreements must describe the real property involved. A buyer's credit score, underwriting model, or appraiser license number is not a required listing agreement element. The contract must identify the property being offered. Question 8. A buried heating oil tank is discovered during inspection of a duplex. Why is this important? Option A. They automatically convert the property to personal property. Option B. They prove the deed is forged. Option C. They eliminate all mortgage requirements. Option D. Underground storage tanks can create environmental and cleanup concerns that may affect value and use. The correct answer is option D. Underground storage tanks can create environmental and cleanup concerns that may affect value and use. Underground storage tanks may involve leaks, regulatory requirements, and cleanup costs, making them material environmental concerns. They do not convert real estate into personal property, prove deed fraud, or remove financing requirements. Environmental issues can affect value, marketability, and buyer decisions. Question 9. A landlord in Brainerd deducts from a security deposit for unpaid rent and damage beyond ordinary wear and tear. What makes those deductions more defensible for Sawyer in Brainerd involving a townhome priced at $246,500? Option A. They are tied to permitted reasons and supported by a written explanation. Option B. They are based only on the landlord's dislike of the tenant. Option C. They include normal fading of paint from ordinary use. Option D. They are taken without notice because deposits are always non-refundable. The correct answer is option A. They are tied to permitted reasons and supported by a written explanation. Minnesota security deposit deductions are generally tied to unpaid obligations or damage beyond ordinary wear and tear, with a written explanation when money is withheld. Personal dislike, normal wear, and treating every deposit as non-refundable are not defensible bases. Documentation is essential in landlord-tenant accounting. Question 10. When Finley, a licensee, intends to buy a client's property in Minneapolis, what disclosure is required before negotiation or consummation? Option A. The licensee may stay silent if paying full market value. Option B. The licensee must affirmatively disclose the license status and the capacity in which the licensee is acting. Option C. The disclosure is needed only after the deed is recorded. Option D. Only the buyer's lender must be told about the license. The correct answer is option B. The licensee must affirmatively disclose the license status and the capacity in which the licensee is acting. A Minnesota licensee who acquires or intends to acquire an interest in real property must disclose the license status and capacity before negotiation or consummation. Paying market value does not remove the conflict risk, and post-recording disclosure would be too late. Lender-only notice does not satisfy disclosure to the property owner. Question 11. A utility company has the right to run power lines across a Minneapolis parcel. Which property right is usually involved? Option A. Estate for years. Option B. Divulsion. Option C. Easement in gross. Option D. A remainder interest. The correct answer is option C. Easement in gross. A utility easement often benefits a company rather than a neighboring parcel, making it an easement in gross. An estate for years is a leasehold, a avulsion is sudden land change, and a remainder follows a life estate. The utilities right is a non-possessory use right. Question 12. A listing agreement states the commission amount but does not explain what event earns it. What required item is missing for Emerson in Red Wing involving a single-family home priced at $310,000? Option A. A promise that the buyer will waive inspection. Option B. A surveyor's certification for every sale. Option C. A court order approving the commission. Option D. A clear statement of the events or conditions that entitle the broker to a commission. The correct answer is option D. A clear statement of the events or conditions that entitle the broker to a commission. Minnesota listing agreements must explain the events or conditions that entitle the broker to compensation. Inspection waivers, surveyor certifications, and court orders are not substitutes for commission earning terms. Clear compensation triggers protect both broker and client. Question 13. An easement benefits a neighboring parcel by allowing driveway access across Morgan Thompson's land. What type of easement is most likely? Option A. Easement appurtenant. Option B. Personal license only. Option C. Trade fixture. Option D. A mechanic's lien. The correct answer is option A. Easement appurtenant. An easement appurtenant benefits another parcel and usually runs with the land. A personal license is revocable permission, a trade fixture is tenant property, and a mechanic's lien secures payment for improvements. The presence of a benefited parcel points to an appurtenant easement. Question 14. A borrower gives a mortgage on a Blaine property while retaining possession. What financing concept lets the borrower pledge the property without surrendering it for Cameron and Blaine involving a newly built townhouse priced at $192,000? Option A. Avulsion. Option B. Hypothecation. Option C. Emblements. Option D. Accession. The correct answer is option B. Hypothecation. Hypothecation means pledging property as security for a debt while retaining possession. Avulsion and accession concern land or property changes, while emblements are crops. Mortgage lending commonly uses hypothecation. Question 15. A listing agreement for a Winona seller is missing a definite end date. Why is that a licensing problem for Avery in Winona involving a small retail building priced at $328,000? Option A. Listing agreements are valid only if they renew forever. Option B. Expiration dates are allowed only in commercial leases. Option C. Minnesota listing agreements must include a definite expiration date. Option D. The county recorder assigns the expiration date after closing. The correct answer is option C. Minnesota listing agreements must include a definite expiration date. Minnesota listing agreements must be written and include a definite expiration date. Automatic indefinite listings create consumer protection concerns and do not meet the required content rules. County recorders do not supply listing agreement expiration dates. Question 16. A lender draws a line around a Clay neighborhood and refuses otherwise qualified mortgage applicants there. What fair housing and lending term best fits for Jordan in Bloomington involving a farm parcel priced at $396,500? Option A. Plottage. Option B. Accretion. Option C. Estoppel. Option D. A redlining. The correct answer is option D. Redlining. Redlining is denying or limiting credit in an area for discriminatory reasons rather than evaluating individual qualifications. Plottage relates to value from assemblage, accretion is natural land buildup, and estoppel prevents inconsistent claims. Area-based discriminatory lending violates fair lending principles. Question 17. In appraisal, what does highest and best use require for Emerson in Red Wing involving a lake cabin priced at $190,000? Option A. A use that is legally permissible, physically possible, financially feasible, and maximally productive. Option B. The use that produces the highest commission. Option C. The use preferred by the current tenant only. Option D. The use with the lowest property tax bill. The correct answer is option A. A use that is legally permissible, physically possible, financially feasible, and maximally productive. Highest and best use considers legal, physical, financial, and productivity tests. Commission, tenant preference, and tax savings alone do not determine highest and best use. The concept focuses on the most supportable use of the property as real estate. Question 18. A buyer's lender evaluates income, credit, and property value without discrimination, which law commonly governs equal access to credit for Schuyler in St. Paul involving a duplex priced at $283,500? Option A. Statute of Frauds. Option B. Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Option C. Truth in Zoning Act. Option D. Rule against perpetuities only. The correct answer is option B. Equal Credit Opportunity Act. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act prohibits discrimination in credit transactions based on protected characteristics. The statute of frauds concerns enforceability of certain contracts, and zoning or perpetuity concepts are unrelated to lending equality. Financing decisions must focus on lawful underwriting factors. Question 19. Which appraisal approach is usually most persuasive for a typical owner-occupied home in a subdivision with many recent comparable sales for Emerson in Red Wing involving a lake cabin priced at $295,000? Option A. Cost approach only. Option B. Income approach only. Option C. Sales comparison approach. Option D. A front foot method only. The correct answer is option C. Sales comparison approach. The sales comparison approach is usually strongest when similar properties have sold recently in the same market. The cost approach can be useful for new or special purpose improvements, and the income approach is more relevant to income-producing property. Front foot analysis is a land valuation tool, not the main method for a typical home. Question 20. A buyer asks about radon during a Blaine home purchase. What is the safest professional response for a licensee for Cameron in Blaine involving a newly built townhouse priced at $233,500? Option A. Guarantee that radon is never a concern in Minnesota. Option B. Tell the buyer to ignore radon because it is a title defect. Option C. Prepare a scientific certification without testing. Option D. Provide required or available radon information and recommend appropriate testing or qualified advice rather than guaranteeing levels. The correct answer is option D. Provide required or available radon information and recommend appropriate testing or qualified advice rather than guaranteeing levels. Radon is an environmental concern that should be addressed with required information, testing, and qualified resources. A licensee should not guarantee levels or provide scientific certification without proper expertise. Radon is a physical/environmental issue, not a title defect. Question 21. During a St. Paul license renewal review, which continuing education schedule best matches Minnesota salesperson requirements for Schuyler in St. Paul involving a rental house priced at $457,000? Option A. 30 hours before the June 30th renewal deadline, with at least 15 hours completed before the previous June 30th. Option B. 10 hours every 4 years with no annual deadline. Option C. 30 hours only during the first licensing year. Option D. Only the required module with no other continuing education. The correct answer is option A. 30 hours before the June 30th renewal deadline, with at least 15 hours completed before the previous June 30th. Minnesota salespersons generally need 30 hours of continuing education before the June 30th renewal deadline, with at least 15 hours due before the previous June 30th. The other options understate the hours, remove the annual structure, or treat the module as the only requirement. Continuing education must be completed in the proper license period. Question 22. Why would an appraiser rely heavily on the cost approach for a newly built condominium unit in Eden Prairie? Option A. It ignores land value completely. Option B. Replacement cost and depreciation can be estimated more reliably for new improvements. Option C. It is the only legal method for all residential property. Option D. It values the property only by monthly rent. The correct answer is option B. Replacement cost and depreciation can be estimated more reliably for new improvements. The cost approach is useful for new construction because replacement cost and accrued depreciation can be estimated with less uncertainty. It still includes land value and is not the only legal method for every property. Monthly rent belongs to income analysis rather than cost analysis. Question 23. A buyer includes an inspection condition in a Mankato purchase agreement, What is the role of that contingency for Finley in Mankato involving a mixed-use property priced at $339,000? Option A. It automatically transfers title to the buyer. Option B. It eliminates the need for earnest money accounting. Option C. It makes the buyer's duty to perform depend on the stated inspection condition being satisfied or waived. Option D. It makes the broker a home inspector. The correct answer is option C. It makes the buyer's duty to perform depend on the stated inspection condition being satisfied or waived. A contingency is a condition that must be satisfied, waived, or otherwise resolved for the contract obligations to proceed as written. It does not transfer title or remove trust accounting duties. The broker does not become the inspector merely because the contract contains an inspection contingency. Question 24. A buyer purchases a $317,500 property with a 90% loan. What is the approximate loan amount? Option A, $31,750. Option B, $15,875. Option C, $4,000. Option D, $285,750. The correct answer is option D, $285,750. Loan amount is found by multiplying the sale price by the loan-to-value percentage. Down payment is the remaining equity, commission is based on brokerage compensation, and annual tax is a government charge. The loan-to-value percentage controls the financing amount. Question 25. Why might Kendall Rivera use a quitclaim deed to clear a possible title issue? Option A. It transfers whatever interest the grantor may have without making title warranties. Option B. It guarantees the property is free of every lien. Option C. It creates a new mortgage automatically. Option D. It replaces the need for delivery and acceptance. The correct answer is option A. It transfers whatever interest the grantor may have without making title warranties. A quitclaim deed can release or transfer any interest the grantor may have, but it does not warrant title quality. It does not guarantee lien-free ownership or create a mortgage. Like other deeds, it still depends on proper execution, delivery, and acceptance. Question 26. A factory closure outside the neighborhood reduces demand for nearby homes. What type of depreciation does this suggest for Blair in Minneapolis involving a mixed-use property priced at $465,000? Option A, physical deterioration only. Option B, external obsolescence. Option C, functional obsolescence only. Option D, accession. The correct answer is option B, external obsolescence. External obsolescence is value loss caused by factors outside the property, such as economic changes or adverse surroundings. Physical deterioration is wear and tear, while functional obsolescence is internal design deficiency. A factory closure is external to the property. Question 27. In St. Paul, a new applicant asks which combination best describes the salesperson licensing path in Minnesota for Skylar in St. Paul involving a rental house priced at $211,000. Option A. Be at least 21, complete only course I, and work independently after passing the exam. Option B. Complete continuing education before any pre-license education and apply directly without a broker. Option C. Be at least 18, complete courses 1, 2, and 3, pass the exam, associate with a broker, and receive Commerce Department approval. Option D. Pass only the national exam and begin practicing while the application is pending. The correct answer is option C. Be at least 18, complete courses 1, 2, and 3, pass the exam, associate with a broker, and receive Commerce Department approval. Minnesota salesperson licensing requires age eligibility, 3 30-hour pre-license courses, examination success, broker association, and approval by the Commerce Department. The other choices either remove required courses, allow independent practice, or treat a pending application as authority to act. Those alternatives do not satisfy the licensing sequence. Question 28. A social media ad for a vacant lot in Duluth uses a team name. What must the advertisement clearly and conspicuously display for Drew in Duluth involving a vacant lot priced at $457,000? Option A. only the salesperson's nickname. Option B, only the property street address. Option C, only the team logo without the brokerage. Option D, the real estate brokerage name. The correct answer is option D, the real estate brokerage name. Minnesota advertising rules require the brokerage name to be clearly and conspicuously displayed. A team name may be used only with broker authorization, and the brokerage name still must appear. Nicknames, street addresses, and logos do not replace the required brokerage identification. Question 29. Recording a deed for a mixed-use property in Winona County primarily gives what type of notice to the public? Option A, constructive notice. Option B, private notice only to the buyer's lender. Option C, a zoning variance. Option D, a guarantee of physical condition. The correct answer is option A, constructive notice. Recording places an instrument in the public records and gives constructive notice of the recorded interest. It does not create a zoning variance or guarantee the property's physical condition. The public records system protects priority and notice, not building quality. Question 30. During a first substantive contact with a residential consumer in Brainerd, what disclosure should the licensee provide for Sawyer in Brainerd involving a newly built townhouse priced at $314,000? Option A, a final closing disclosure showing loan terms. Option B, an agency disclosure form explaining available agency and facilitator relationships. Option C, a county tax statement for the current year. Option D, a deed prepared for recording. The correct answer is option B, an agency disclosure form explaining available agency and facilitator relationships. Minnesota requires an agency disclosure form at the first substantive contact in residential transactions covered by the statute. The form explains representation choices and facilitator status before the consumer decides whether to enter a representation contract. Closing disclosures, tax statements, and deeds serve different functions later in the transaction. Question 31. A pooled interest-bearing trust account earns interest on client funds, unless otherwise agreed, where is the interest generally paid under Minnesota rules for Schuyler and St. Paul involving a duplex priced at $422,500? Option A, to the salesperson as a bonus. Option B, to the listing client automatically. Option C, to the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency for the Housing Trust Fund account. Option D, to the county assessor's operating budget. The correct answer is option C, to the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency for the Housing Trust Fund account. Minnesota rules direct interest from pooled trust accounts, less reasonable costs, to the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency for the Housing Trust Fund account unless the parties specify otherwise. The salesperson, listing client, and county assessor are not the default recipients. Trust account interest is regulated separately from commission. Question 32. At the end of a Minnesota tenancy, what must a landlord generally do with the tenant's security deposit after receiving a forwarding address for Cameron and Blaine involving a townhome priced at $211,000? Option A, keep the entire deposit automatically as a cleaning fee. Option B, apply the deposit to the broker's commission. Option C, record the deposit with the county as a deed restriction. Option D, return the deposit plus interest or provide a written explanation of lawful deductions within the required time. The correct answer is option D, return the deposit plus interest or provide a written explanation of lawful deductions within the required time. Minnesota law requires the landlord to return the deposit with interest or provide a written explanation for lawful deductions within the required period. Automatic forfeiture, commission payment, and county deed restrictions do not match the security deposit rules. Security deposits remain tenant funds unless a lawful deduction applies. Question 33. At closing, a seller debit for unpaid property taxes usually means what for Casey in Woodbury involving a lake cabin priced at $320,000? Option A. The seller is being charged for the portion owed for the seller's period of ownership. Option B. The buyer is paying the seller's commission twice. Option C. The lender has forgiven the loan. Option D. The deed has failed to convey title. The correct answer is option A. The seller is being charged for the portion owed for the seller's period of ownership. A seller debit reduces the seller's proceeds for an amount the seller owes, such as the seller's share of property taxes. It does not double a commission, forgive a loan, or prove the deed failed. Debits and credits allocate amounts between the parties. Question 34. Which ownership estate gives Skylar Miller the greatest bundle of rights with no stated end date or condition? Option A, estate at sufferance. Option B, fee simple absolute. Option C, life estate. Option D, license. The correct answer is option B, fee simple absolute. Fee simple absolute is the broadest ownership estate and can continue indefinitely. A life estate ends with a measuring life, an estate at sufferance arises from holdover possession, and a license is permission rather than an estate. The key phrase is ownership without a stated end date or condition. Question 35. If a seller rejects Riley Wilson's offer and the listing broker holds the earnest money, when should the rejected offer's earnest money be returned? Option A. Only after the seller signs a different purchase agreement. Option B. At the end of the listing period. Option C. No later than the next business day after rejection. Option D. After the broker deducts marketing expenses. The correct answer is option C. No later than the next business day after rejection. When an offer is rejected, Minnesota trust account rules require earnest money to be returned to the potential buyer no later than the next business day after rejection. The broker cannot hold it until another sale, listing expiration, or reimbursement of marketing costs. Rejected offers do not create a right to keep the buyer's funds. Question 36. A seller accepts an offer only after the buyer receives financing approval. What type of clause is most likely involved for Harper & Rochester involving a townhome priced at $275,500? Option A, Habendum clause. Option B, subordination clause. Option C, acceleration clause only. Option D, a financing contingency. The correct answer is option D, financing contingency. A financing contingency makes performance depend on loan approval or financing terms. A habendum clause appears in deeds, subordination changes lien priority, and acceleration makes a debt due after default. The condition involves financing approval. Question 37. A licensee in Moorhead drafts a complex legal clause for Harper Lee instead of recommending legal counsel. What risk is created? Option A, unauthorized practice of law. Option B, constructive eviction. Option C, functional obsolescence. Option D, inverse condemnation. The correct answer is option A, unauthorized practice of law. Licensees may fill in approved forms and explain business terms, but drafting legal clauses can cross into unauthorized practice of law. Constructive eviction, functional obsolescence, and inverse condemnation describe different legal or valuation issues. Complex legal drafting should be handled by an attorney. Question 38. A landlord receives a forwarding address after a tenant leaves a Minnesota rental. What deadline is commonly tested for returning the deposit or giving a written explanation for Sawyer and Brainerd involving a townhome priced at $455,000? Option A. Within 1 year after the lease began. Option B. Within 21 days after the tenancy ends, assuming the forwarding address requirement is met. Option C. Only at the next property tax settlement. Option D. Whenever the landlord sells the building. The correct answer is option B. Within 21 days after the tenancy ends, assuming the forwarding address requirement is met. Minnesota landlord-tenant materials commonly test the 21-day security deposit return or explanation period after the tenancy ends and the forwarding address is provided. Waiting for a tax settlement, building sale, or 1-year mark does not match the standard rule. The landlord must account for the deposit promptly. Question 39. Two investors own a Red Wing duplex with unequal shares and no survivorship language. Which ownership form is most likely for Emerson and Red Wing involving a lake cabin priced at $251,000? Option A, tenancy by the entirety. Option B, severalty. Option C, tenancy in common. Option D, life tenancy only. The correct answer is option C, tenancy in common. Tenancy in common allows unequal ownership shares and has no automatic right of survivorship. Severalty means one owner, and a life tenancy is measured by a life tenancy by the entirety is a special marital form not described by unequal investor shares. Question 40. Under Chapter 82 Standards, what must a broker do to properly supervise salespersons at a Mankato office for Finley in Mankato involving a mixed-use property priced at $407,500? Option A. Let each salesperson approve their own contracts without broker review. Option B. Delegate all trust records to buyers and sellers. Option C. Supervise only advertising and ignore purchase agreements. Option D. Monitor brokerage activities, review transaction documents, and review trust account books and records. The correct answer is option D. Monitor brokerage activities, review transaction documents, and review trust account books and records. Broker supervision includes ongoing monitoring of salespersons, transaction documents, and trust account records. Salespersons do not self-supervise, and clients are not responsible for brokerage trust accounting. Limiting supervision to advertising would miss major broker responsibilities. Question 41. In a gross lease for a Brainerd office, which cost structure is most typical for Sawyer and Brainerd involving a townhome priced at $328,500? Option A. The landlord pays most property operating expenses from the rent received. Option B. The tenant pays all property taxes, insurance, and maintenance separately. Option C. The tenant receives title at the end of the lease. Option D. The rent is based only on retail sales volume. The correct answer is option A. The landlord pays most property operating expenses from the rent received. In a gross lease, the landlord typically pays most operating expenses and receives rent as a gross amount. Net leases shift more expenses to the tenant, and percentage leases tie rent partly to sales. A lease does not transfer title merely because it is gross. Question 42. Before advertising Parker Johnson's townhome to the general public, what must a Minnesota licensee obtain? Option A. An oral promise that the owner may list later. Option B. A signed listing agreement or other signed written authorization from the owner or authorized person. Option C. A buyer's pre-approval letter. Option D. A tax parcel map from the county. The correct answer is option B. A signed listing agreement or other signed written authorization from the owner or authorized person. A licensee must have a signed listing agreement or other signed written authorization before advertising real property for sale or lease to the general public. Oral permission is not enough for this requirement. Buyer pre-approval and tax maps may be useful, but they do not authorize public advertising. Question 43. A mortgage contains a clause allowing the lender to call the full balance due after default. What clause is this for Morgan in Moorhead involving a fourplex priced at $375,500? Option A. Habendum clause. Option B. Quiet enjoyment clause. Option C. Acceleration clause. Option D. Substitution clause in appraisal. The correct answer is option C. Acceleration clause. An acceleration clause allows the lender to demand the entire debt after default. A habendum clause is associated with deeds, quiet enjoyment appears in leases, and substitution in appraisal is a valuation principle. The trigger is borrower default. Question 44. Why is the Minnesota agency disclosure form given to Drew Anderson not enough by itself to create representation? Option A. It automatically creates dual agency for every transaction. Option B. It replaces all purchase agreement requirements. Option C. It gives the consumer a license to sell property. Option D. It is a disclosure only, and representation requires a written listing contract or buyer representation contract. The correct answer is option D. It is a disclosure only, and representation requires a written listing contract or buyer representation contract. The agency disclosure form informs consumers about relationship options but does not create representation. Representation requires a written contract such as a listing agreement or buyer representation contract. The other choices confuse disclosure with dual agency, purchase contracts, or licensing authority. Question 45. A rumor says a Red Wing home was once the site of a natural death and possible paranormal activity. Under Minnesota disclosure rules, how is that fact treated for Emerson and Red Wing involving a mixed-use property priced at $467,500? Option A. It is not treated as a material fact that must be disclosed merely for that reason. Option B. It must always be disclosed in the listing contract. Option C. It makes the property unmarketable until court approval. Option D. It requires the buyer to receive a separate environmental report. The correct answer is option A. It is not treated as a material fact that must be disclosed merely for that reason. Minnesota law states that certain stigmatizing facts, such as suicide, natural death, or perceived paranormal activity, are not material facts requiring disclosure merely because they occurred. That does not change the duty to disclose physical defects or other material facts. Listing contracts, court approval, and environmental reports address different issues. Question 46. If assessed value is $240,825 and the tax rate is 22 mils, what is the annual property tax? Option A, $1,283. Option B, $5,298. Option C, $5,704. Option D, $25,350. The correct answer is option B, $5,298. A mil is $1 per $1,000 of assessed value, so the tax is assessed value multiplied by mils divided by 1,000. Monthly interest, points, and down payment are financing calculations. Millage questions require converting mils to a decimal rate. Question 47. A lot has 240 front feet worth $160 per front foot. What is the indicated front foot value? Option A, $2,529. Option B, $18,150. Option C, $38,400. Option D, $641,667. The correct answer is option C, $38,400. Front foot valuation multiplies frontage by the price per front foot. Tax proration, commission, and income capitalization rely on other formulas. The question asks only for the land value indicated by frontage. Question 48. A buyer brings certified funds for price, closing costs, and prepaid items after lender credits are applied. What is this amount commonly called for Kendall in St. Cloud involving a rental house priced at $451,000? Option A, gross rent multiplier. Option B, a functional obsolescence. Option C, protective list. Option D, cash to close. The correct answer is option D, cash to close. Cash to close is the amount the buyer must bring to complete the transaction after credits, loan proceeds, and closing charges are calculated. GRM is an appraisal shortcut, functional obsolescence is depreciation, and a protective list relates to override clauses. The question is about closing settlement funds. Question 49. A contract substitutes a new party and releases the original party from liability. Which term best describes that change for Reese in Stillwater involving a condominium unit priced at $404,500? Option A, novation. Option B, assignment only. Option C, accretion. Option D, hypothecation. The correct answer is option A, novation. Novation substitutes a new obligation or party and releases the original party when all required parties agree. Assignment transfers rights but does not necessarily release the assignor. Accretion and hypothecation involve land buildup and pledging property as security. Question 50. A property has monthly gross rent of $2,100 and sells for $231,000. What is the gross rent multiplier? Option A, 8%. Option B, 110.0. Option C, 6.2%. Option D, 75%. The correct answer is option B, 110.0. Gross rent multiplier is price divided by gross rent for the same period. Cap rate, commission rate, and loan-to-value percentage measure different relationships. GRM is a quick income property comparison tool, not a complete valuation method. Question 51. What is the main purpose of an owner's title insurance policy for Morgan Garcia? Option A. To insure the roof against storm damage. Option B. To guarantee future market appreciation. Option C. To protect against covered title defects that existed before the policy date. Option D. To replace the need for a purchase agreement. The correct answer is option C. To protect against covered title defects that existed before the policy date. Owner's title insurance protects against covered past title defects, liens, or ownership issues discovered after closing. It is not property casualty insurance, an appreciation guarantee, or a substitute for the purchase contract. Title insurance focuses on ownership risk, not physical damage or investment performance. Question 52. A retail tenant pays base rent plus a percentage of monthly sales. What lease type is described for Taylor and Egan involving a townhome priced at $430,000? Option A. Ground lease only. Option B. Graduated deed. Option C. Quitclaim lease. Option D. Percentage lease. The correct answer is option D. Percentage lease. A percentage lease includes rent based partly on the tenant's sales, commonly in retail settings. A ground lease involves leasing land, and the other terms are not standard lease classifications. The sales volume rent formula is the key clue. Question 53. A licensee in Stillwater wants to know which required continuing education topics must be included in the renewal cycle along with the general module for Reese in Stillwater involving a vacant lot priced at $466,000. Option A. Agency law and fair housing. Option B. Only appraisal theory and mortgage underwriting. Option C. Only property insurance and income tax preparation. Option D. Only construction codes and zoning administration. The correct answer is option A. Agency law and fair housing. Minnesota renewal requirements include agency representation and disclosure training and fair housing training as part of the required education mix. Appraisal, insurance, tax, construction, and zoning topics may be useful, but they do not replace those mandated topics. The rule is designed to keep licensees current on representation and anti-discrimination duties. Question 54. When Kendall Chen buys a condominium unit in Winona, what does the buyer typically own? Option A. Only a stock certificate and no real property interest. Option B. The individual unit plus an undivided interest in the common elements. Option C. The entire building in severalty. Option D. A temporary license to occupy the unit. The correct answer is option B. The individual unit plus an undivided interest in the common elements. Condominium ownership generally includes the individual unit and an undivided interest in common elements. A cooperative usually involves shares and a proprietary lease, not condominium ownership. The buyer does not own the whole building alone or merely hold a temporary license. Question 55. Under federal fair housing law, which group is a protected class in the sale or rental of housing for Schuyler in St. Paul involving a rental house priced at $363,500? Option A. Credit score above 700. Option B. Preference for lakefront homes. Option C. Familial status. Option D. Employment in real estate sales. The correct answer is option C. Familial status. Familial status is a protected class under federal fair housing law. Credit score, housing preferences, and occupation in real estate are not protected classes by themselves. Housing decisions must avoid discrimination based on protected characteristics. Question 56. Which event usually allows trust funds in a Minnesota real estate transaction to be disbursed for Schuyler in St. Paul involving a rental house priced at $419,500? Option A. A verbal request from one salesperson. Option B. A social media announcement that the deal is done. Option C. The buyers hope to renegotiate after closing. Option D. Closing of the transaction, written agreement of the parties, statutory affidavit, or court order. The correct answer is option D. Closing of the transaction, written agreement of the parties, statutory affidavit, or court order. Trust funds may be disbursed only under recognized authority such as closing, written agreement, applicable statutory affidavit, or court order. A verbal request or social media post does not provide the necessary authority. A buyer's later wish to renegotiate is not a trust fund disbursement event. Question 57. If Jordan Chen tells the licensee that the seller will not perform under the signed purchase agreement, what must the licensee do? Option A. Immediately disclose the stated intent not to perform to the other party or parties. Option B. Keep the information confidential until the closing date. Option C. Cancel the agreement without telling the buyer. Option D. Disclose only if the seller misses a loan contingency. The correct answer is option A. Immediately disclose the stated intent not to perform to the other party or parties. A licensee put on notice that a party will not perform according to the transaction agreement must disclose that intent to the other party or parties. Keeping the information secret would mislead the other side. The rule is different from a party's inability to satisfy a contingency. Question 58. A Duluth salesperson wants to place personal money in the broker trust account to save for taxes. Why is that improper for Drew in Duluth involving a farm parcel priced at $321,500? Option A. Personal funds must always be kept in the listing broker's trust account. Option B. Trust accounts may contain only trust funds except limited identified funds for service charges or minimum balance requirements. Option C. Salespersons may use trust accounts as savings accounts with broker consent. Option D. Commingling is allowed when the amount is less than 1 month's rent. The correct answer is option B. Trust accounts may contain only trust funds except limited identified funds for service charges or minimum balance requirements. Trust accounts are for trust funds, with only limited identified personal funds allowed for service charges or minimum balance requirements. Using the account as a personal savings account would commingle funds. Broker consent or a small amount does not change the commingling rule. Question 59. A property manager collects rent for an owner in Woodbury. How should those funds generally be treated before proper disbursement? Option A. As the manager's personal operating funds. Option B. As sales tax collected for the state. Option C. As trust funds handled according to the broker's trust account obligations. Option D. As title insurance premiums. The correct answer is option C. As trust funds handled according to the broker's trust account obligations. Rent collected for an owner is money held for another and must be handled under trust accounting duties. It is not the manager's personal money, a sales tax fund, or a title insurance premium. Property management requires careful separation of client funds. Question 60. For a pre-1978 residential property, what federal disclosure issue should a licensee remember for Rowan in Eden Prairie involving a condominium unit priced at $286,000? Option A. The property can never be sold. Option B. Only commercial buyers receive the pamphlet. Option C. Lead disclosure replaces all agency disclosure. Option D. Lead-based paint disclosure requirements may apply before the buyer or tenant is obligated. The correct answer is option D. Lead-based paint disclosure requirements may apply before the buyer or tenant is obligated. Federal lead-based paint rules apply to many pre-1978 residential transactions and require disclosure before the buyer or tenant is obligated. The rules do not ban every sale or limit disclosure to commercial buyers. Lead disclosure is separate from agency disclosure and material fact duties. Question 61. A loan payment schedule gradually reduces principal until the loan balance reaches zero. What financing term describes this for Riley in Bemidji involving a condominium unit priced at $352,500? Option A. Amortization. Option B. Accretion. Option C. Subordination. Option D. Dischete. The correct answer is option A. Amortization. Amortization is repayment of a debt through payments that reduce principal over time. Accretion is natural land buildup. Subordination changes lien priority, and dischete transfers property to the state when no heirs exist. The decreasing loan balance is the clue. Question 62. A Bemidji parcel contains 9 acres. How many square feet are in the parcel? Option A, $35,200. Option B, $392,040. Option C, $273,150. Option D, $3,642. The correct answer is option B, $392,040. 1 acre contains 43,560 square feet, so acreage is converted by multiplying acres by 43,560. Frontage value, loan amount, and tax amount are calculated from different data. Unit conversion is a common real estate math task. Question 63. During negotiations in Minneapolis, Reese Anderson changes the price and closing date in the seller's offer. What is the legal effect of that response? Option A. It is an acceptance because some terms stayed the same. Option B. It creates a lease instead of a purchase contract. Option C. It is a counteroffer that rejects the original offer and proposes new terms. Option D. It keeps the original offer open forever. The correct answer is option C. It is a counteroffer that rejects the original offer and proposes new terms. Changing material terms creates a counteroffer rather than an acceptance. The original offer is rejected unless the offeror renews or accepts the new terms. Keeping some terms unchanged does not preserve the original offer forever or convert the transaction into a lease. Question 64. A facilitator working with Sawyer in Winona performs services without representing either side. Which fiduciary duty generally remains unless expanded by written agreement? Option A, loyalty to the seller only. Option B, obedience to the buyer's investment goals. Option C, advocacy for the party paying the commission. Option D, confidentiality. The correct answer is option D, confidentiality. A facilitator does not act in a fiduciary capacity as a buyer's broker, seller's broker, or dual agent, but confidentiality remains a duty unless the relationship is expanded by written agreement. Loyalty, obedience, and advocacy belong to agency representation, not ordinary facilitator status. Commission payment does not create fiduciary representation by itself. Question 65. If one broker represents both Casey Lee and Finley Thompson in a residential transaction, what must occur before the broker acts as a dual agent? Option A. All parties must give informed consent to the dual agency relationship. Option B. Only the seller must consent because the seller listed the property. Option C. The broker may proceed without consent if the commission is reduced. Option D. Consent is unnecessary if 2 different salespersons are involved. The correct answer is option A. All parties must give informed consent to the dual agency relationship. Dual agency requires informed consent from the parties because the broker owes duties to both sides and cannot advocate exclusively for either one. A lower commission does not remove the conflict, and 2 salespersons licensed to the same broker can still create dual agency. Seller-only consent is not enough. Question 66. Regarding commission language in a Minnesota listing agreement, which statement best reflects the required consumer notice for Harper & Rochester involving a newly built townhouse priced at $265,000? Option A. The state sets one mandatory commission rate for all residential listings. Option B. Compensation is determined between each individual broker and the broker's client. Option C. The MLS sets the minimum commission for every listing. Option D. The buyer must always pay the listing broker directly. The correct answer is option B. Compensation is determined between each individual broker and the broker's client. Minnesota listing agreements must include a notice that compensation is determined between the broker and the broker's client. The state and MLS do not set a universal commission rate for every transaction. Payment arrangements depend on the agreement and cannot be assumed from the listing alone. Question 67. If annual property taxes of $4,550 are prorated to the seller for 144 days on a 365-day basis, approximately what amount is charged to the seller? Option A, $11,610. Option B, $3,290. Option C, $1,795. Option D, $822. The correct answer is option C, $1,795. Tax proration divides the annual tax by 365 and multiplies by the number of seller days. Commission, discount points, and monthly interest are unrelated calculations. Proration allocates an annual expense fairly between buyer and seller at closing. Question 68. Before Avery schedules the salesperson examination after studying in Winona, which pre-license course must already be completed? Option A, Course 2 only. Option B, Course 3 only. Option C, the annual continuing education module. Option D, Course I. The correct answer is option D, Course I. Course I must be successfully completed before a candidate registers for the salesperson examination. Course 2 and Course 3 are required before license application, while the annual module is a continuing education requirement for licensees. Confusing pre-license and continuing education rules leads to the wrong result. Question 69. A lender requires private mortgage insurance because Riley Anderson's conventional loan has a high loan-to-value ratio. What does PMI primarily protect? Option A, the lender against part of the risk of borrower default. Option B, the buyer against title defects. Option C, the seller against market depreciation. Option D, the appraiser against negligence claims. The correct answer is option A, the lender against part of the risk of borrower default. Private mortgage insurance protects the lender when a conventional loan has higher default risk due to low borrower equity. It does not protect the buyer's title, guarantee the seller's price, or insure an appraiser's liability. Borrowers often pay for PMI, but the lender is the protected party. Question 70. A Minnesota landlord withholds a deposit for faded paint caused by normal use. Why is that deduction questionable for Jordan in Bloomington involving a farm parcel priced at $302,000? Option A, deposits may be withheld only for broker commissions. Option B, normal wear and tear is not a proper basis for withholding a security deposit. Option C, all paint changes are automatically tenant damage. Option D, the tenant must buy the property to get the deposit back. The correct answer is option B. Normal wear and tear is not a proper basis for withholding a security deposit. Security deposit deductions are for items such as unpaid rent or damage beyond ordinary wear and tear. Normal fading from ordinary use is not the same as tenant-caused damage. Broker commissions and purchase rights are unrelated to residential deposit accounting. Question 71. A buyer representation agreement in Edina is best described as what type of document for Quinn in Edina involving a mixed-use property priced at $423,000? Option A, a deed transferring title to the buyer. Option B, a loan commitment from the lender. Option C, a written contract that creates agency representation for the buyer. Option D, a property tax statement from the county. The correct answer is option C, a written contract that creates agency representation for the buyer. A buyer representation agreement is the written contract that creates buyer agency. It does not transfer title, approve financing, or state county taxes. Representation contracts define the broker-client relationship and compensation terms. Question 72. A tenant remains in possession after a lease expires without the landlord's consent. What is the tenant's status for Kendall in St. Cloud involving a rental house priced at $336,500? Option A, remainderman. Option B, joint tenant. Option C, dominant tenant. Option D, tenant at sufferance. The correct answer is option D, tenant at sufferance. A tenant at sufferance is a holdover who originally had lawful possession but stays without consent after the right ends. A remainderman holds a future interest, a joint tenant is a co-owner, and dominant tenant is not the standard term. The holdover fact controls. Question 73. An advertisement says a rental house is available only for adults with no children. What is the main fair housing concern for Kendall in St. Cloud involving a rental house priced at $342,500? Option A, The statement indicates a preference or limitation based on familial status. Option B. The ad forgot to mention the roof age. Option C. The ad uses a list price instead of an appraised value. Option D. The ad includes the city name. The correct answer is option A. The statement indicates a preference or limitation based on familial status. Advertising cannot indicate a discriminatory preference or limitation based on familial status except where a valid housing for older persons exemption applies. Roof age, list price, and city name are not the fair housing issue in the wording. The problem is discouraging families with children. Question 74. A seller says the basement is perfectly dry despite knowing of repeated water intrusion. Why is that more than ordinary puffing for Taylor in Egan involving a newly built townhouse priced at $266,000? Option A. It is always protected opinion regardless of knowledge. Option B. It is a factual misrepresentation about a material property condition. Option C. It is allowed if the buyer gets a loan. Option D. It becomes legal if stated verbally instead of in writing. The correct answer is option B. It is a factual misrepresentation about a material property condition. A specific false statement about a known material condition can be misrepresentation. Puffing is general opinion, not a false factual claim about water problems. Financing approval or verbal delivery does not make a known material misstatement acceptable. Question 75. In a lien theory mortgage state such as Minnesota, what does the mortgage usually give the lender for Drew in Duluth involving a condominium unit priced at $327,500? Option A. Immediate ownership and possession of the property. Option B. A life estate measured by the borrower's life. Option C. A lien securing repayment while the borrower retains title. Option D. A leasehold estate for the loan term. The correct answer is option C. A lien securing repayment while the borrower retains title. In lien theory, the mortgage gives the lender a security lien rather than immediate title and possession. The borrower retains legal title unless foreclosure changes ownership. Life estates and leaseholds are different interests, not the ordinary mortgage relationship. Question 76. While interviewing with two firms in Maple Grove, Hayden asks how many Minnesota brokers may supervise the salesperson during the same period. Option A. 2 brokers if both brokers consent. Option B. Any number of brokers if the salesperson discloses the arrangement. Option C. 1 broker for residential sales and a separate broker for leases. Option D. 1 actively licensed broker. The correct answer is option D. 1 actively licensed broker. A salesperson in Minnesota is licensed to act on behalf of 1 broker during the same period. Consent or disclosure does not create authority to work under multiple brokers. Splitting residential and leasing work between brokers would still violate the Single Broker Association rule. Question 77. A buyer takes title while the seller's existing loan remains in place, but the buyer does not become personally liable to the lender. What phrase best describes this for Finley in Mankato involving a lake cabin priced at $357,000? Option A. Taking subject to the mortgage. Option B. Assuming the mortgage with release. Option C. Creating a life estate. Option D. Recording a quitclaim covenant. The correct answer is option A. Taking subject to the mortgage. Taking subject to a mortgage means the property remains security for the debt, but the buyer does not personally promise the lender to pay. Assumption involves personal liability unless otherwise released. Life estates and quitclaim covenants are unrelated to this financing arrangement. Question 78. A buyer credit on a closing statement for assumed unpaid taxes generally does what for Reese in Stillwater involving a condominium unit priced at $325,500? Option A. Increases the seller's loan payoff. Option B. Reduces the buyer's cash needed because the buyer will later pay the tax bill. Option C. Eliminates title insurance. Option D. Creates a new listing agreement. The correct answer is option B. Reduces the buyer's cash needed because the buyer will later pay the tax bill. A buyer credit reduces cash due from the buyer when the buyer assumes a future obligation connected to the seller's ownership period. Loan payoff, title insurance, and listing agreements are separate closing or contract issues. Credits and debits must be read from the party's perspective. Question 79. An older commercial building in Blaine may contain asbestos insulation. What should the licensee avoid doing for Cameron in Blaine involving a newly built townhouse priced at $369,000? Option A. Recommending qualified inspection or environmental advice. Option B. Disclosing known material facts. Option C. Giving a technical safety opinion beyond the licensee's expertise. Option D. Using written reports from qualified professionals. The correct answer is option C. Giving a technical safety opinion beyond the licensee's expertise. Asbestos concerns should be handled with qualified inspection and proper disclosure of known material facts. A licensee should avoid technical safety opinions outside the real estate role. Professional reports and disclosure are safer than speculation. Question 80. After passing the examination, Emerson wants to submit a Minnesota salesperson license application immediately. Which education requirement still must be met before applying for Emerson in Red Wing involving a lake cabin priced at $205,000? Option A. Only course I is ever required for the license. Option B. A broker's 30-hour course must replace course 3. Option C. No additional education is needed once the exam is passed. Option D. Courses 2 and 3 must be successfully completed if they have not already been completed. The correct answer is option D. Courses 2 and 3 must be successfully completed if they have not already been completed. Course I opens exam eligibility, but courses 2 and 3 must be completed before the salesperson license application. Passing the exam does not erase the remaining pre-license education requirement. The other options either omit required courses or invent a broker-only replacement course. Question 81. Which lease gives a tenant possession for a fixed term that ends automatically on the stated expiration date for Parker in Maple Grove involving a fourplex priced at $303,500? Option A. Estate for years. Option B. Tenancy at sufferance. Option C. Fee simple defeasible. Option D. Easement appurtenant. The correct answer is option A. Estate for years. An estate for years is a leasehold for a definite period and ends at the stated expiration. Tenancy at sufferance is holdover possession after lawful possession ends. Fee simple defeasible and easement appurtenant are not ordinary fixed-term leasehold estates. Question 82. Which Minnesota tax is generally associated with recording a deed that conveys real property for Taylor and Egan involving a townhome priced at $350,000? Option A. Mortgage registry tax only. Option B. State deed tax. Option C. Utility franchise fee. Option D. Federal gift tax return fee. The correct answer is option B. State deed tax. Deed tax is generally associated with recording a deed conveying real property. Mortgage registry tax relates to mortgage debt, while utility franchise and federal gift tax issues are outside the ordinary deed recording charge. The transaction document determines which tax applies. Question 83. Unless the party's written agreement says otherwise, when should a Minnesota listing broker deposit earnest money after receiving it and final acceptance has occurred for Kendall in St. Cloud involving a rental house priced at $313,500? Option A. Only after the buyer's loan is fully underwritten. Option B. At any time before the deed is recorded. Option C. Within 3 business days of receipt or final acceptance, whichever is later. Option D. Within 30 calendar days after the first showing. The correct answer is option C. Within 3 business days of receipt or final acceptance, whichever is later. Minnesota trust account rules provide a default deadline of 3 business days after receipt or final acceptance, whichever is later, when the written agreement is silent. Waiting for underwriting, recording, or an arbitrary 30-day period would not meet that default rule. The parties can address timing in their written agreement. Question 84. At Capital City Realty, A salesperson asks which online system the Commerce Department uses for many licensing services such as applications, renewals, and transfers for Taylor & Egan involving a townhome priced at $412,000. Option A, MLS Grid. Option B, Torrens Online. Option C, HUD Exchange. Option D, Pulse. The correct answer is option D, Pulse. Pulse is the electronic licensing system used for many Minnesota Commerce Department licensing services. MLS systems, Torrens records, and HUD resources serve different purposes. Knowing the licensing portal helps distinguish administrative filing from transaction records and federal housing resources. Question 85. A deed expressly creates survivorship between co-owners of a townhome. Which ownership feature is being emphasized for Harper and Rochester involving a townhome priced at $383,000? Option A. Right of survivorship in joint tenancy. Option B. No right to possess the property. Option C. A tenant's trade fixture right. Option D. A mortgagee's foreclosure priority. The correct answer is option A. Right of survivorship in joint tenancy. Joint tenancy is associated with right of survivorship when properly created. Co-owners generally have possession rights, and trade fixtures concern tenants rather than co-owner succession. Mortgage priority is a lien issue, not survivorship ownership. Question 86. At closing, why are prepaid property taxes or rents commonly prorated between buyer and seller for Morgan in Moorhead involving a fourplex priced at $441,500? Option A. To change the sales price after acceptance. Option B. To allocate income or expenses to the party who owned the property during the relevant time period. Option C. To avoid recording the deed. Option D. To eliminate the need for title insurance. The correct answer is option B. To allocate income or expenses to the party who owned the property during the relevant time period. Priorations allocate recurring income and expenses based on the period each party is entitled to or responsible for them. They do not rewrite the price, avoid recording, or replace title insurance. Closing statements use debits and credits to make this allocation. Question 87. A lender offers Riley Wilson a mortgage whose interest rate can change based on an index after an initial period. What type of loan is this? Option A, package mortgage only. Option B, open-end listing. Option C, adjustable rate mortgage. Option D, a graduated lease. The correct answer is option C, adjustable rate mortgage. An adjustable rate mortgage has an interest rate that may change according to an index and loan terms. A package mortgage includes personal property, an open-end listing is not a standard listing type, and a graduated lease changes rent over time. The index-based interest change identifies the loan type. Question 88. A garage built on Jordan Wilson's land extends 2 feet over the boundary onto a neighbor's parcel. What issue is created? Option A, hypothecation. Option B, subrogation. Option C, reconciliation. Option D, encroachment. The correct answer is option D, encroachment. An encroachment occurs when an improvement physically intrudes onto another parcel. Hypothecation pledges property for debt, subrogation substitutes one party's claim, and reconciliation is an appraisal conclusion step. The garage crossing the boundary is the key fact. Question 89. Which deed gives Finley Peterson the broadest set of title warranties from the grantor? Option A, general warranty deed. Option B, quitclaim deed. Option C, bargain and sale deed with no covenants. Option D, tax certificate only. The correct answer is option A, general warranty deed. A general warranty deed provides the strongest customary covenants of title from the grantor. A quitclaim deed conveys whatever interest the grantor has without warranties. A bargain and sale deed without covenants and a tax certificate provide less assurance than a general warranty deed. Question 90. A buyer agrees with the lender to become personally liable on the seller's existing mortgage. What is the buyer doing for Rowan in Eden Prairie involving a vacant lot priced at $431,000? Option A, taking subject to the mortgage only. Option B, assuming the mortgage. Option C, creating an easement appurtenant. Option D, paying deed tax only. The correct answer is option B, assuming the mortgage. Mortgage assumption involves the buyer taking personal responsibility for the existing loan obligation with lender involvement. Taking subject to a mortgage lacks personal liability to the lender. Easements and deed taxes do not describe assuming debt. Question 91. If a Duluth property sells for $339,500 and the buyer obtains an 70% loan, what is the buyer's down payment? Option A, $237,650. Option B, $16,975. Option C, $101,850. Option D, $814. The correct answer is option C, $101,850. The down payment is the sale price minus the loan amount. The loan amount is the financed portion, the commission is a brokerage compensation calculation, and the tax proration allocates property taxes. Separating buyer equity from loan proceeds is a core exam math skill. Question 92. A buyer pays 3% in discount points on a $276,850 loan. Approximately how much are the points? Option A, $1,442. Option B, $118,650. Option C, $27,685. Option D, $8,306. The correct answer is option D, $8,306. One discount point equals 1% of the loan amount, so the points are calculated by multiplying the loan amount by the point percentage. Monthly interest, down payment, and commission are calculated from different formulas. The point charge is a loan cost calculation, not a sales commission or equity contribution. Question 93. A rental property produces $36,500 in net operating income and investors require a 8.5% capitalization rate. What value is indicated by the income approach? Option A, $429,412. Option B, $198,250. Option C, $184,800. Option D, $19,550. The correct answer is option A, $429,412. The income approach using direct capitalization divides net operating income by the capitalization rate. Gross rent multiplier, loan amount, and frontage calculations use different inputs. The cap rate converts expected net income into an indicated value. Question 94. A licensee directs families with children only toward one area of Bemidji. What fair housing problem does that conduct create? Option A, amortization. Option B, steering. Option C, subordination. Option D, novation. The correct answer is option B, steering. Steering occurs when a real estate professional guides prospects toward or away from areas based on a protected characteristic. Amortization is loan repayment, subordination is lien priority adjustment, and novation is contract substitution. The conduct described limits housing choice and raises fair housing risk. Question 95. In a dual agency situation in Rochester, why must the licensee avoid advocating exclusively for one party for Harper in Rochester involving a small retail building priced at $248,500? Option A. The broker becomes a government mediator. Option B. The buyer automatically becomes the broker's only client. Option C. The broker owes duties to both buyer and seller within the limits of dual agency. Option D. The seller's broker relationship disappears at acceptance. The correct answer is option C. The broker owes duties to both buyer and seller within the limits of dual agency. Dual agency means the broker owes duties to both sides and must work within those limits. The broker is not converted into a government mediator, and neither party becomes the only client. Acceptance of an offer does not eliminate the agency relationship or the disclosure limits. Question 96. An appraiser adjusts comparable sales for differences from the subject property. Which approach is being applied for Casey in Woodbury involving a lake cabin priced at $385,000? Option A, cost approach only. Option B, income approach only. Option C, mortgage registry method. Option D, sales comparison approach. The correct answer is option D, sales comparison approach. The sales comparison approach compares the subject to similar sold properties and adjusts for differences. Cost and income approaches use different inputs, and mortgage registry tax is not an appraisal method. Comparable sale adjustment is a core valuation technique. Question 97. A buyer transfers contract rights to another buyer but remains liable unless released. What is this called for Harper in Rochester involving a townhome priced at $228,500? Option A, assignment. Option B, novation with automatic release. Option C, this cheat. Option D, ad valorem taxation. The correct answer is option A, assignment. Assignment transfers contractual rights to another party, but the assignor can remain liable unless a release or novation occurs. Cheat and ad valorem taxation are unrelated. The distinction between assignment and novation is commonly tested. Question 98. If Casey Thompson pays interest only for the first month on a $213,600 loan at 6.2%, approximately what is 1 month's interest? Option A, $3,204. Option B, $1,112. Option C, $1,382. Option D, $12,000. The correct answer is option B, $1,112. Monthly interest is calculated by multiplying the loan balance by the annual rate and dividing by 12. Points, tax proration, and front foot value use different formulas and bases. Interest calculations test careful conversion from annual to monthly rates. Question 99. An appraiser subtracts curable physical deterioration and functional obsolescence from replacement cost. Which approach is being used for Riley and Bemidji involving a vacant lot priced at $420,500? Option A, sales comparison approach only. Option B, income approach only. Option C, cost approach. Option D, gross rent multiplier only. The correct answer is option C, cost approach. The cost approach estimates land value plus improvement cost minus depreciation. Sales comparison relies on comparable sales, and income analysis capitalizes income. Depreciation from replacement cost is the clue. Question 100. If Cameron passes the salesperson examination on a spring test date, how long does the candidate generally have to apply for the license before retaking the exam is required? Option A, 30 days from passing the examination. Option B, 3 years from passing the examination. Option C, until the next broker renewal cycle only. Option D, 1 year from passing the examination. The correct answer is option D, 1 year from passing the examination. Minnesota guidance states that the salesperson license application must be made within 1 year after passing the examination. Shorter periods such as 30 days are too restrictive, and longer periods ignore the retake requirement. The broker renewal cycle does not control the candidate's examination validity period.